we should not be around the cost of producing silver, and we're around that cost production for a while, so long that it basically kill most of the serious exploration project.
Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics as we dig back into covering some of the many things going on in the silver world. We're recording on Monday, February 20th, where we have a silver price right around $22. And fortunately, I am joined today on the show by someone who's been a fan of the show I've gotten to know over the past couple of months, also has an interesting project we'll touch on at the end. And that's Jean-Yves Therien, and was having some great conversations about the markets with Jean-Yves, and it's nice to finally make some time to have him on the show and dig into some of the dynamics going on in silver. So Jean-Yves, it's a pleasure to have you here. And how are you doing today, my friend?
Thanks, Chris. It's fun to be invited by. I'm a fan, and when you get invited by one, I wouldn't say you're my idol, but I appreciate what you do. So I'm very happy to be here.
Well, that's kind of you to say that. I'm just regular guy talking about silver and trying to figure out how this all shakes out, because again, a lot of people look at silver as a hedge against inflation. We also have the industrial usage, and even with a lot of the money that's been printed, I think silver on a lower side than many of us might have expected. So perhaps we can start there, where with silver around $22 right now, what do you see as going forward the potential upside and the downside? And perhaps we can dig into some of the factors that go into that. But for people who might be looking at silver for the first time or have been studying it every day, given where we are, how do you look at silver at $22 right now?
The base case is how much it costs to produce an ounce of silver. I think I mean, there's lots of point to do on the use of silver. It's a must. I mean, we cannot live our life today without silver. So how much it costs to produce something that's essential to our life, to the green, whatever the industry. I think silver is has its nose everywhere. The monetary metal, industrial metal, green metal, whatever. I think it fits all the place. Basically, I think we should not be around the cost of producing silver. This is nonsense, and we're around that cost production for a while, so long that it basically kill most of the serious exploration project regarding silver. In my view, there's still some, but it's not, I mean, it's not a topic right now as looking for a big deposit on silver, because you don't make enough money right now except if you find a big great deposit. So where is the price going with all this? I think it's definitely up, but we could go down for a while still, even if I don't want that. I mean, that make no sense, but we all know that no sense has been happening very often in the last few years. So it's like silver at 120 times the price of gold, or silver at whatever. It's anyway, I think the price will go up. Where, when, it's tough to say, but definitely much higher. I mean, this is a critical element in my view. It's as critical as lithium. It's probably more critical than lithium because no electronics. Anyway, so where it goes, I think, I'm not a guy from chart and everything, but honestly, the monetary base, if we start, my mindset is more related to the monetary base. So if we look back in 1980s, with the amount of cash on the world and today, and make a relation with the gold price, we should be on this base at par with the gold versus 1980, which is $100. That's my base case scenario, and I would give a premium over that because it's not just a monetary asset. It's a very useful metal for any kind of industry that solar panel to electric car or whatever. So what's the premium is? I mean, I think the premium could be, it's all your guess is as good as mine, but we could have a premium on that, and also a premium on the fact that the industry is going to run out of the reserve to produce maybe in a decade from now. If we maintain the price at this level, I mean, there's not much that will appear in terms of production, new capacity production. So how much is the premium for that factor too? It's another, I mean, we all know that it's take at least 10 years to find a deposit and put that in production. 10 years today is a low ball number, you know, it's probably 15 to 20 years. So, and how long it take to bring a silver production deposit into production? I mean, you need to find the money also, because if you don't have the price at $22 and you demonstrate a low profitability, it's tough to get the funding for that too. And you add that to, there's more and more country where it's tough to do business because you never know how, if you start making too much money, they're gonna take a part of your project. So all those layer of premium we should have where we are, I don't know. I mean, but it's, the downside is minimum. I mean, but the upside is multiple.
Yeah, it's quite a complex equation, and as you point out, I mean, we can look at M2. Here's something I look at quite a bit: the Fed's balance sheet, and a lot of people talk about the metals being priced relative to the real interest rate. Yet here we are back in 2011 when silver was up at $50, which, okay, maybe you could say that was a spike and maybe not the ideal place to measure from. Yet still, we've seen massive amounts of credit injected into the system, and during that time, the silver price goes down. Again, as we've talked about a lot on here, you and I have talked about, people know it's priced in paper contracts rather than the supply and demand, and makes you wonder, because you put the key dynamic in there is that, you know, for a while, it doesn't matter because you can see a lot of paper dumped on the market, the price can go down. Yet we have that factor where the supply isn't, new projects aren't getting funded at $22 price. There's not a lot of exploration out there. Then you add in that we have the cost for the miners are certainly facing the inflated prices. So does it almost leave us in a situation where, you know, we're set up for some sort of gap or disaster or break point at some point where you see these deficit already, and then the amounts of metal they're calling for with the Green New Deal? How do you see that playing out?
I think we're good to the coyote moment, you know, when you run in at the end of the road and suddenly you discover that there's no ground under your feet. I think it's what's going to happen, because it's not going to be a smooth uptrend or downtrend. It's going to be something that broke, and honestly, is going to be a overnight awakening, I guess, generated by an event probably, which event is going to be, I think, a monetary, like a Lehman moment, let's say like that. Right. So it's sad because for an investor point of view, you always want to invest yourself in an industry like silver miner or silver the metal at all, as a constructive mindset investment theory. You know, you invest and you grow your investment over time. It's not like just a last resort investment. If everything break and you're gonna make money, that's not the way you want to invest in life, because you're just waiting for the end of the world. And we're not, I mean, I'm not in this kind of thinking, but it seems that it's going to need something big to really release the value of this metal. Actually, it's like nothing excites that, you know. We have all the green, the solar panel and everything that, and also there's a big thing is people don't realize that it's tough to recycle most of the silver we produce. You know, it's so spread in different products that are randomly everywhere. So there's no, and so cheap that nobody can. I mean, they don't recycle the silver in the solar panel, which is massive use. So I think about all the other use that are so small that they don't care, you know. So everything is in favor of a much higher price, and we're gonna have that in the future. But damn, I'm waiting for so long, and
So what do you think it takes for that to actually happen? Which I think is something that people wonder about, where we've seen a lot of these fundamental factors, we've seen the money printing. What do you think it takes to actually see that spark?
it could come from so different place. That's the funny part. I feel is it's like you play your Russian roulette, and there's bullet in every. You could come from everywhere. So from my point of view, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna come with something like with a credit crunch in the market, which is for me. I mean, in 2008, I was a stockbroker and for 20 years, and I was really thinking that we were at the limit of the credit cycle.
Mhm.
I was totally wrong. And today, I think we're in the no man's land of the credit. So where we go from there, and I think something will break loose with the rate hikes and the people. They're so much in debt that where it's gonna break first. I mean, it's gonna break somewhere, and it's gonna be credit rated. I think the repricing of precious metal will be caused by a credit crunch or something like that.
Something in the financial markets is how
A
you.
disaster that will come from nowhere that nobody suspect because it's all there's a dark side of the banking system that nobody know what's going on the other side, but we all know that it's bigger in the dark side than the real side. What we know, the derivative market is it's funny because we see those derivative market. Let's take the Credit Suisse. The amount is so crazy, but there's not much talking about that. It's like anyway. That's my point of view. I wish I could be just thinking that just the demand should fuel the value of silver, which so far it's not what's happening. You know,
Well, I get what you're saying, and that's how I've come to look at it, where there's almost those two key factors, where there's the supply and demand, and then if we do get more quantitative easing at some point, I don't know whether that will be this year yet. Seems to me it's like a mathematical certainty at
yeah.
some point when you look at what happens when you keep injecting the credit and then pull it back, and then you get weakness, and each time it requires more. So um, interesting way it's set up. And you mentioned what happened in 2008, and I'm wondering if you see some similarities where it's almost like similar. Now, I wish I had seen this back then in the mortgage market. I was a little before I was looking at things with this perspective. But for those who saw that in advance, where there were some factors building there that you didn't know when the day of reckoning was going to come, yet similar to now that you can see something building, maybe don't know when yet. Is that a fair comparison, would you say?
I think yeah. I think we're like same moment. It's like it's became like the real estate became a cult. You don't have a house, you don't make you cannot have a driveway with a swimming pool in the back.
Right.
You know that you miss the boat. Up to the point that I think people will say, you know what? I wish I would not invest in the pool. I would not buy the house. I would, but we're not at that moment. But the credit has fueled that, and it fueled many consumption. So we lose. I think we're at the credit. The credit is where I think it's gonna crash the system. You know, and the precious metal will probably have their good time at this moment, but it's just sad because it's a real business that should run without, we don't need to have a major crisis to you know, to make this business viable, you know, because obviously you couldn't make it viable if your inflation cost don't give you any margin. And the mining industry is tougher than many others. I think it's one of the toughest industry to run because you need to manage a tougher and tougher. You know, the grades are going down all the time. Inflation is going up, so you have less value and you increase your costs. So if the commodity doesn't increase, I mean, it's a dead end industry. And you just look at Barrick. Barrick was producing almost 7 million ounce, 8 million ounce 15, 20 years ago. Now they are at 4 million, 4.1. And they do a little margin. It's like, where they going to be in 10 years, 20 years? Yeah, like I said to my friend, there's no more fish to eat in the pond, you know. What else? You know, they almost, I mean, the industry is very now concentrate. And what's left to buy if you want to maintain your production, because at the end you don't increase production, you just buy your competitor. But Barrick has cut by almost 50% of production, and they bought many company. So I know, I mean, this is we have more money chasing few stuff. So anyway, it's gonna be fun to look. I'm just waiting to have this recognition and more money feeding this industry, because I think it's an industry that need more investment to maintain what they're doing, and also much more higher value to maintain the profitability. Because I mean, what's the point to invest in something you don't make money? I mean, the base description of investment is what's the return, and if you can show any return or a very low return, or you just make your return expectation on a future increase of metal, which not coming right now. So I'm a banker on the side of raising funding, and I'm on the other side right now to raise funding to put my mine in production. I mean, if you don't demonstrate a profitability at this low pricing, I mean, how to convince? Yeah, the gold will double, silver will triple, so we'll make a lot of money. But yeah, until that happens, what you're doing, you go, you start and you go in care and maintenance right away, and you wait that the price is going up. I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah, and it's interesting when you look at the gold price relative to silver, where a little bit off the recent highs, still not all that far away from the all-time high. And are you a little bit surprised by that, where again you don't have that factor where, I mean, if the gold isn't produced, I mean, maybe the monetary demand changes yet, whereas silver, you have some actual real world problems that come into the picture, which is a big part of what led me to favor silver over gold. Again, we haven't seen that reflected in the price, but any thoughts on how we've seen gold stay up near, not far off from the all-time highs, while silver is still quite a bit lower?
it's I think it's my view is because gold has retained a more higher importance, because the central bank are piling on gold, and I think it's giving a big edge on silver. But that doesn't make any sense, because like mathematically, like I like to think, is there's the ratio between the production of gold and silver doesn't just justify this so wide gap.
Right.
And it's funny because we are full of good analysts in the world right now with the computer. There's no way you could miss a so evident situation of discrepancy between those two assets, who has as long a story as I think silver and gold has been, as long on earth, as used as monetary as ever. So now we have computer trading that are able to find a little half a penny on a stock that doesn't reflect the value, and we're not able to see the difference between silver and gold value in terms of production, reserve in the world, use recycling. This is easy maths.
Yeah.
So, but I cannot answer that because for me it's I got a problem with my thinking when I'm computing that. It's like I'm not that. I mean, there's so much computer. We're heading for the AI that will control everything, and we're not able to decide. Oh, that silver is a buy.
It seems cheap to me based on the levels of where certain other things are and what's happening in the world, but we'll see how that part plays out. One last one I wanted to run by you. We talked a little bit before we hit the record button, but let's say that we do get 30, 40, 50, or maybe even higher silver price. What are you thinking about in terms of the governments and some of the mines? Is that a concern that you have that all of a sudden they're
Obviously,
implementing new taxes, or what would you say about that part?
government always take their piece of cake all the time, and bigger your cake will be, bigger the piece they will want,
Yeah.
and for me, silver has no interest to take a piece of cake because otherwise they're gonna kill all their mine. Mexico, if they start saying that, you know what, we want 20% from First Majestic to your production because you know what, it's a scarce resource, and we would like to benefit of this money, not just for you. They would just close the mine, but bring the silver at $50. I think they may start to see some increase from the government requests. But if we go crazy number, I mean, what's crazy number? Honestly, I mean, I don't know what's crazy number on silver because we don't know what's the real value of this metal because it's about 15-20 billion dollars of value per year in the world where we print that probably in the time frame of this interview, all the world probably print as much money as the silver production. So it's irrelevant to think about in terms of dollar. But for me, I think we're gonna face a lot of news coming, like we see with lithium, like in Panama, with what's the name of the company right now? I forgot, but I think it's gonna be on the news all the time, and even Canada will do that. I'm based in Quebec City, Quebec, and then Canada is a good jurisdiction for mining. We're not used to increase the royalty from the government, but they're gonna follow the rest of the world. The mining industry is making a lot of money here too. I mean, it's going to take more, and they may be the last one to do that. But at the end, I think they're going to do it too. So, this is something that is trouble. I mean, make me lose sleep sometime when I'm thinking about. You start a project in a place that you could wake up and this morning, the government say, yeah, you know what? It's not 2%, it's 20.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy, go back in your country. So that's but I'm happy to be in Canada for that, my mining company. And honestly, I would really think about it twice before I'm doing a project in some country. And I'm not saying that it's going to happen overnight. And we should not consider investing and looking for a deposit in another country. But this is a risk. And for me, I'm lucky to have something in a place that we're ranked in the top 3-4 jurisdiction in the world. So I think it's safe to, I think it's safe for a mining company that has the ability to split their risk in terms of geology country. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like what's the company who had their gold mine in it's Kinross in Russia, and they had some good time right now. Bringing back your gold in Canada from Russia. I think it's I don't know if it's possible.
Well, it's definitely something to be thinking about and considering, especially like you mentioned, the world getting a bit more divisive in many ways. And of course, we don't know exactly how governments will respond, but certainly something good to be factoring in and important at this time. So I appreciate what you mentioned there. And before we wrap up, wanted to give you a chance to talk about what you're doing. One note before we get to that, I just wanted to mention to the audience, obviously I know there's a lot of stuff happening in the silver community these days. And I did really want to give Jean-Yves a chance to come on the show and talk some silver. This is not a sponsored interview. I just have had a good time talking with Jean-Yves, and does have an interesting project that he's working on. So by all means, do your own due diligence, but did just want to pass that along, since obviously I understand is a sensitive time out there. And with that said, though, Jean-Yves, perhaps you could let folks know a little bit about what you're doing. I know you're heading up to PDAC next month, and perhaps you could share what you have going on with ESGold.
Okay, ESGold is a very unique proposal. I think it's and then we decided to call it ESG for it's like ESGold, ESG. You know, it's very hot topic right now to be a good friend with the environment. So ESGold has a project. The main activity of ESGold is to put in production a project at Montauban, which is the first zinc mine in Canada, has been started producing in the early 90s. It's a VMS. So the mine has been in operation between 1905 and 1990, mostly for zinc, lead, silver. And what's remained on the site is tailings. It's a place that we intend to start processing the tailings, and it's a orphan mine. So there's a responsibility from Quebec government, which we're going to work with to decontaminate and neutralize those tailings, but recovering the gold and silver, which is the mainly resource in the tailings. But this is the first phase of our project, and actually we're going to release our PEA in about 2 weeks, just before the PDAC. And it's more than a PEA. PEA is a pre-feasible economical assessment. Usually you do that before you spend any money on your project. And usually you don't have permit. In our case, we have all the permits for a 1,000-ton closed-end Merrill Crowe circuit, and all the permits to operate on site. And we also build the infrastructure. Electricity is there, half of the equipment, ball mills. So it's a very advanced project. So basically, I would say that it's more between a bankable and pre-feasibility study that will come out. And we intend to get the funding to put that in production 6 to 8 months after we get our raised funding, which I expect to have before summer. So we could become the next silver and gold producer in Canada in 2023. It's maybe small, but it's a VMS. On surface, there's a lot of resource. The crown pillar has never been mined. So basically, people will understand in the future, looking at what we have, is for the little capex we're going to have, we talk about a project that will yield a very high return. I think we could surprise a lot of people with what we can produce in terms of return on capital. So this is our main project. And we're actually looking for other tailings on surface, because this is a model we want to develop. So it's like we clean, and we revisit the site, because there's always leftover on every project, specifically old mine. So this is a niche we want to explore. And also we have a very sensitive view on the environment. So we're going to look for converting our tailings into, let's say, concrete or stuff that construction could use. Our Montauban project is near Big Town. We're not in the wood, so it's feasible because there's not cost of transport and stuff like that. So we're really looking for a full 360 view of the mining, not just extraction. So how we could clean the place and make money with everything we're going to touch. On the side of this project, because this is mainly our focus right now, but we also have I would call it our lottery ticket, you know. It's and we talked about it in the past. We have an exploration project which we share 50-50. It's in the middle of Ottawa, in front of the Royal Canadian Mint. We have the right to recover the waste in the river coming from the mint. So we have lots of reports saying that there's up to 4 million ounces of gold in front of the mint in the river, because their waste was with between 1% and 10% of gold and silver and platinum and palladium that has been put in the river over about 70 years. So we did an exploration program last summer. We find gold on every of our sample, and we believe we find the spot where the big pile of waste has accumulated, and we're going to go back next summer. So obviously, it's probably the cheapest in the most highest potential of exploration program you could find on Earth, because we talk about potentially recovering 100,000 tons of waste. That's the potential of, in terms of tonnage, but potentially up to 4 million ounces of gold. So it's make a good grade, let's say like that. And the idea is to bring all this waste to our mill at Montauban to reprocessing. So all the facility, we will have all facility to reprocess, and it's also classified as a waste reprocessing and cleaning a place that has been, I mean, disturbed by, or I mean, the Mint, the Royal Canadian Mint, for many years has was putting more importance of not getting stolen than recovering all the gold in their waste. So anyway, we'll see. This is a big, I mean, it's a big treasure hunting story, but we obviously focusing more on the base case scenario that Montauban will become a very lucrative project, producing, I mean, we're going to be around 30% silver production. So it's classify us as a silver producer, in my view, because today there's been, I think over 20%, you start to become a producer, silver producer. I think it's between 20 and 45% of the best. I mean, the highest producer in silver content, I think it's 45% in the world, 50%. So anyway, I like to say that we're going to be a silver producer more than a gold producer, because I think silver has more upside than gold at this point. So this is ESGold. I think it's a story to follow. I think it's a very small producer we're going to become, but we could increase that production over time, and also we could surprise a lot of people with the VMS deposit at Montauban. Cluster VMS usually, and we just have found one. We have lots of indication that there's many around, and we're really out of a mining district. So I think, and we never use, not just us, but the past owner, they never use the top new technology for exploration. So there's a lot to do to increase the value of the company on this project. So this is ESGold.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out, and it's been fun seeing the different ways that people go about finding, I guess you wouldn't call it a deposit, but just bringing the metal into production, especially where there's something that you're not overtly mining. So, and especially with the Ottawa River project, another example of that. And again, I know you'll be at PDAC next month if people want to catch up with you there. And if anybody did have questions or would like to find out more about what you're doing, could you just let them know the website and the best way to contact you?
Yeah, ESGold.com, and we have our you have email address on the contact us, and we'll be pleased to contact with everybody. So we're gonna release our PA in about 2 weeks. I think that's, if anybody has any interest to know more about what's coming in, those numbers will be interesting. And yeah, I mean, we're ready to go. It's really a turnkey project. Like I said, just getting the permit for a mill right now, it's really tough in Canada. It's environmental. The environmental permit is permitting is I mean, it could take 5 to 10 years and cost you $5-10 million. So all this is done. The building is there. The building we see on the screen, Chris, is where we're going to install the 1,000 mill. Yeah. That's going to be, and the tailing you see beside it's what we're going to reprocess first. So we have a free easy money coming in the company the day one, and we have lots of surprise that will come. I guess that people will like, for those who are interested or our story. I think it's going to be interesting.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing there. Also appreciate you coming by to talk about some of these dynamics in the silver market. It matches a lot of what I've been seeing and thinking, and I think you also phrased it well, where there's the things that can happen in the short term, and there's also the supply and demand that seems stacked one way over a longer period of time. And again, I think that was helpful just to put in perspective for folks. So appreciate you joining me today. Best of luck with the project, and I'll look forward to staying in touch and catching up with you again soon.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, and I appreciate. Don't stop your show. We need a show like yours.
Well, I appreciate that, and we'll check in with you soon.